Welcome back to College Football Addiction. I've got my buddy Kev Robbins on 561 Kev on Twitter. How's it going, man? Miami hate week, Florida State hate week.
Yeah. It's hard to hate them at this point.
It's yeah. Yeah, I don't want to get canceled, but yeah, like your little brother that you just like feel bad for almost this week.
No, well, it's easy to hate them, but it just doesn't have the same juice.
Yeah. All right, what's your I'll ask you this and I'll give mine too. Try and think of one or two, but do you have a favorite not going to be this weekend, I would hope, but favorite memory from this rivalry?
So you know the game, the Sean Taylor where he hit PK Sam, the ball flies. Like Sean Taylor like won the game, right?
Yeah.
Like he took over, he played the best safety game maybe you've ever seen. I took my SATs that morning. Um, so I go take my SATs, and I'm just not into it because Miami's playing Florida State, and it's a noon kickoff. So I race home and that game. So that one stands out. And there was another time, a Santana Moss game where he had a punt return. Miami won 31-21. That's the big time players make time plays. I think Miami hadn't beaten them in like 5 years. So, that's fun.
Yeah. Other side, do you have any that are just like what's the worst? Like not necessarily like 2 years ago when it was 45-3. I mean, guess if that's your worst,
No,
I mean,
okay,
like,
so yeah, there's some bad. Miami ties the game up, or Miami, Brad Kaya year, right?
oh yeah, I was
The
there.
block at the Rock, the
Yeah.
block that I hit my knees. I was in I was in the club section. I was sitting in like 206, and Barrios has this good punt return right to set him up, and then he throws the touchdown pass, and then you're like, okay, we're gonna go to overtime. Like we got all the momentum, and then the block.
Yeah.
to,
Yeah.
to extend it to like 7.
Yeah.
That extended. I think that was the last year they beat them before Miami beat them the next year.
Yeah. And that next year, 2017, that was brutal too because Miami 2017 is the year that Miami won all the like had a really good record, right? With Richt.
Yeah. They
And so
went to the
like
ACC
but
championship
like
game. And all that.
we had that. Like we gave up a fourth down. Like that one was brutal up in Doak because like it finally ended the streak. I mean, I don't think it was as dramatic as that block at the Rock, but like that one sucked because Florida State felt like they had it, and I think it was again Barrios or somebody like on fourth down. Like you had we had the tackle, and he got it, and then Langham in the corner of the end zone to win it, and you're
The
just like,
funniest, the funniest thing about that is, um, Malik coming on the field in that last second drive, like hyping the crowd up, like he was fucking Marino,
yeah,
and then he went out and did it. Like it was
yeah.
crazy.
Um, a really good one. I mean, the Block of the Rock was a lot of fun to be at. The Jameis comeback, and I know that one's probably brutal too. But the Jameis comeback in 2015 was pretty, or 2014, I guess, the year after the championship was crazy.
So that is okay. That's the Jalen Ramsey game to me. So you
Yeah,
call it the Jameis comeback. I call it the Jalen Ramsey game.
yeah,
Because he played the second half as a safety better than I've ever seen in my whole life. Like he
yeah,
got Clyde Walford scared. Like they put him in the middle of the field and he completely took the game over. I mean,
yeah,
like Kaya threw for 400. Stacey Coley had 170 yards receiving. I'm making this up, but Coley had a huge game. Coley always played good against Florida State,
yeah.
but
If
he
I would have
never
been,
win.
that was the one where Jameis throws it across the middle and it gets tipped right up into Carlos Williams' hands, and he just walks
Yeah.
into the end zone. Like as a Canes fan, you just got to feel like, all right, God just doesn't want us to win. Like we just like there is no, I'll tell you
And
the
I was
worst.
go ahead.
The worst was I think it was 2002. I was kind of like you mentioned like not being focused, but I was playing like I was in middle school at that point, and so I was just playing football on a Saturday. I don't remember like I think we were playing like one of the better teams. I don't know whatever age that is, like JV, I guess, like for a local team for a local youth Pop Warner football or whatever. But we won. We won like in dramatic fashion. We went for two to win the game. Like walked it off on like the road against like the best team in the league, and we were all jacked up. And I got back in the car to listen to Gene Deckerhoff call the field goal wide right. Like what if that was 2002, 2003, somewhere in there? Obviously
I
not
think
the late.
2002.
Yeah,
Like Shockey caught
yeah.
the game winning.
And I was just
Willis McGahee had like the long screen pass. Like
I
yeah,
was just
those were good
impressed.
games. So those were like different, right? Like those games, like everybody's in the first round. Like those are national championship style
Yeah.
games, right? Like the year, the year I'm talking about, the Santana Moss game is actually the 2000 year where they beat Florida State on the
It
road
didn't go. Yeah.
and didn't go because they had lost to Washington earlier. Then
Um,
Dorsey's first ever road start or something like this.
can you imagine how many? I mean, certainly with the 14 playoff, but like how many 14 playoffs would have been like all three of the big three? And like if the 12 team would have existed, like every playoff would have been, well, I know that, in the 90s, and then in the 80s, the Gators weren't great, but like there would have been a lot of years, especially in the early 2000s when
Oh
Florida was
yeah, I
really
mean
good. Like
anywhere from like 99 to 2003.
two ish. Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I think in three Miami won 10 games. Like they would have made the 12 team for sure.
Yeah.
Like maybe not the.
It would have been crazy with, um, all right. So this week, the quote is definitely circulating, and I like how it's a 2-year-old quote that like people are sharing now. I thought when I first saw it, I thought that he said it this week, and I was like, oh god, he knows. I still think he knows, but Mario's saying like one day the shoe will be on the other foot. Um,
That's such a good quote 2 years
it is,
later.
man. Like,
That's such a good quote 2 years later because he's like, it's our job to stop them.
yeah,
The shoe will be on the other foot soon. And at the
yeah,
time, could you see that? Like at the time, could you vision that it was going to be?
yeah. Not like this. Not like it would be a 21 point um, spread where Florida State, yeah, like you would have never imagined because even then, we hadn't had 13-0 yet, but Florida State won 10 games that year. You'd think like, oh, well, they're not going to, I mean, they're going to, at worst case, be an 8-4 team, and Miami at best case probably be a 10-2 team. Like you didn't think Miami was going to, you didn't even know Cam, most of us weren't even aware of Cam Ward in 2022, right? Like, so,
Right, or last
um,
year. So that's another thing. And we could talk about it in a minute if you want, but that's another thing. Like nobody was talking about Cam Ward like this.
no,
And
not at
we
all.
knew he was good. Like we knew he was like a backyard football guy. Nobody's talking about him first round, Heisman type. Nobody was talking about him like this.
Not like this. No, I think that, you got to, you win games, right? And you do it the way he's doing it. Like I asked Gabby when he was on, like about like Heisman moments, and it's hard when, I don't think they played like a premier game. I mean, he'll certainly get the chance in the championship game, but like just some of the stuff he's done is stupid. Like a push pass that goes for like two broken tackles by a tight end that goes for a first down against Virginia Tech. And then, just throwing backwards to another guy. Like he just does crazy things, breaking
Bro,
tackles to throw
he
a
did the
50-yard
thing
pass.
this week against Louisville where he's kind of like in the pocket and he rolls to the left, so his away dominant hand, and he's kind of just like directing traffic and he's fading left, and then he just throws a damn dart
Yeah.
in the left corner of the end
The
zone.
back of
He
the
did
end
that against
zone.
Florida, and he
Yeah.
did it against Louisville. This is becoming routine stuff for him.
Every week. Yeah. Something. And again, it's not disinterested. Like that's not the right word, but he almost looks disinterested. Like he almost like, not but like just so calm and cool and collected. Just
I,
like,
I
just
saw
so chill.
I saw a reel, and it's like. And it's showing him like fading back and doing all this dumb shit. And then like at the combine, when they ask him like your playing style, he's like, "Yeah, I just really just be chilling and shit, bro. I just he's like dog, I just really just be chilling and shit." So
Yeah, no, he's pretty special. And I think, speaking on Heisman, like I think if, we'll see if Travis Hunter can come back. We'll see if, the Boise State kid can keep it up. I don't know if Miami keeps winning. It's hard to think that. I mean, he's certainly going to be in New York. I don't know if they want to go best quarterback on best team or which he's not just that. Like he's certainly better than that. But like or if they want to kind of go like new flavor of the month. I think Hunter would have to come back and continue to be pretty special. So anyway, I think it's wide open for him if they win. If they win the next 5 games, and then certainly if they win the ACC too, it's going to be hard not to give it to him, unless Hunter has done something ridiculous or the other kid stays over like 12 yards a rush. I mean, that's kind of crazy too. But
I just think if you give it to Hunter, you're overthinking it at this point. Like it's always been a quarterback award. Like, and you say it what it is. It's just always been a quarterback award.
yeah,
If you put his numbers up to Daniels and Burrow and everybody else at this point, like he's right on par with the last Heisman winner. Um, and I think that helps Miami too in the playoffs in the playoffs. Say Miami doesn't win the ACC, so there was no way I thought that they could be a non-ACC playoff team, a non-ACC champ playoff team. If they run the table and lose close to Clemson, I think you put Cam Ward in
Yeah, no, I agree with that completely. The only way Miami doesn't make it to me is if they stumble before the ACC and
and lose the ACC.
yeah, and then well maybe don't make it. You know, Pitt's undefeated, SMU's undefeated,
Oh,
Clemson's
right, right.
undefeated. So at 11-1, maybe not, but I still think Miami would have a pretty good chance to get in there. I guess it would look how how they looked. Like if they got blown out by somebody, then I think you'd have like doubts, like where's their quality win, stuff like that. But I do think that at the end of the day, the playoff wants to have the best players in it. It is about ratings, it is about good games, and is a nine, a 10-2 LSU more entertaining than an 11-1 Miami? Yeah, I don't know, maybe, but I think Miami would end up getting in.
Well, I think Miami beats Clemson anyway, but that's for another day.
We'll get that back on early December. So, Florida State obviously struggling. Not a lot of positives, not a lot of bright spots. We were joking about it before we got started. We may have the special teams edge, but outside of that, not sure what else. Um,
What's
you
he
know,
doing with the quarterback position? So I saw Brock started right, but Luke played a little bit. Did Rodemaker get in? Is he still there?
no, he went to Southern Miss. He actually got benched there for the fans that were like, well, we should have kept him. When you
Right.
get benched at Southern Miss, the backup is always the most popular. I mean, you guys
Right.
experienced that the last few years. Like, we
Yeah.
got to get the backup in. And then that one's, how about UCF going through like, speaking of one of Miami's
Curry.
backups. Yeah. Well, they've gone through like 4 quarterbacks in like 2 weeks. Like they are just like hot
So
potato.
that's one of the plays from the when the shoes on the other foot thing, right?
Yeah.
Like Ja'Curry Brown just getting ragdolled. Um, who I forget who did it, but they just grabbed with one hand and kind of like threw him down in that
Yeah.
46-3 game.
Jamie Robinson. Yeah.
Yeah.
So he started Brock. I mean, I don't know if you saw it. I don't, probably had better things to do with your Friday night or not. But Brock had 3 turnovers on 3 consecutive plays. First,
I did see that. Yeah, I did see
bro,
that. That was
like just
impressive.
when it rains, it pours. And so, dude, we outscore. Not to play this game, but remember Mullen used to say like, "Well, we're winning the yardage battle, and they were losing games. We won by we won the time of possession. They went 3 for 17 on third down, and they had over 100 yards less than us. And we had a 100-yard kickoff return for a touchdown. So like that doesn't get counted into the final yards, but if you count that, we really had like 200 more yards than them. Still lost the game. So he had
That's impressive. I mean, that's
three
impressive to lose a game where you
how do
have
you
all
do
those.
it? Well, you have 3 straight turnovers. They scored off of all 3 turnovers, and they moved the ball 36 yards on the 3 drive. Like after the 3 turnovers, they went 36 yards and scored 17 points. One was a pick six. One they went 1 yard and kicked a field goal, and then the other they drove like 35 yards for a touchdown. So yeah, other than that, I mean, Manny just went into a shell and said like we're going to run, punt every time, and Florida State's offense is so anemic. So he had the turnovers. They went with Luke for a little while. And Luke just, I think he's going to be fine. He just doesn't. He's not there in the pocket yet. Like he doesn't feel the pressure. He doesn't move at all. He just kind of like. I don't think he trusts his arm. And then Florida State's wide receivers aren't very good, and so they don't get open. And so like Luke can't like throw somebody open yet. Like he's been on campus
And
for
if
a
Manny's
decade.
gonna do anything, he's gonna attack you.
Yeah.
So
And
Manny's sending
they
players from everywhere.
they didn't bring much pressure when Brock was in. They started dialing up the pressure with the true freshman. And so he just, took like 4 or 5 sacks. They couldn't move the ball. They went back to Brock. They actually moved it fairly well. He drove them for like a 50-yard drive and got a field goal, drove them for another 50-yard drive down to like inside the 30, I think, inside of field goal range. And then we fumbled, and that was kind of the end of the game. So Brock came back in and did move it a little bit better. Relatively, like
So Miami's defense, the last 3 games, are giving up like 38 a game. So that's gonna be the Miami's Achilles, right? They're bad in the secondary. Like not as much in coverage as they just get confused. It
yeah,
seems like, and they take terrible angles on the run. And Kiko was our best defensive player last year. He might be our worst defensive player this year. Like the way he has came back, but then Basaint take like a huge um, jump. Like it's just weird to watch, and they get they get caught up on the eye candy, right? The
yeah.
motions, the movement, the fakes, and every team's running fake reverses and Philly specials and fucking fake punts or freaking fake punts. And um So I expect Norvell to dial up a lot of that, like their counter that he loves, the reverses, the fake punts, the just try
What's
anything.
Yeah, I mean, you got to like unload the clip, but at the same time, you've got a guy that started what 4 games now, and ironically for Rock Glenn, now like, the Duke game was maybe a little bit easier, though it was probably his worst performance. He's started 4 games against, 4 of his 5 games have been against top 10 teams, and so it certainly hasn't been easy for him. He started against Georgia, Louisville, Clemson, and now Miami. So
Jeez.
trial by fire there, but. I what's tough though is like I don't know that you can open up the playbook that wide because I just how much of a how much can he really do? They've been. I mean, you mentioned the counter. They've been terrible with the counter. Their guards are terrible, so they can't pull this year, and they're last. I mean, they're 100. Well, after okay, so they did run pretty well against Duke. So I'm sure the stats have changed. But going into the Duke game, they were 134th in rushing offense this year out of 134 teams. And you mentioned the secondary being confused. Not to, I mean, I am certainly going to make you even more confident than you already are. The secondary being confused. We lead FBS in drop rate at over 10.5% a game. And so like at times DJ and Brock and Luke have hit guys in the hands. Luke had a beautiful ball, 50-yard dot to Kentron Portier, who is a 5th-year senior, and he just dropped it. Like he had 2 steps on the defender. There was no, like he just dropped it in the end zone. And so, yeah, I mean, that's that people have said that like, oh, Miami's defense isn't very good. Or their secondary specifically, and they've given up a lot of points. And it would. I mean, Florida State's their max this year is 21 points, and they did that against Georgia Tech. So they haven't done that. I mean, they haven't scored 21 points on U.S. soil.
So
Like
I saw this. I saw this stat, and it kind of blew my mind because we can make fun of Norvell all we want, but he's a good offensive coach. Like he didn't just forget how to coach offense,
no,
right? They've scored 11 touchdowns this year.
man.
Miami scored 48.
And is that 11 offensive touchdowns? Because like at least
Oh,
one's
I
a
don't know.
special teams
I don't
touchdown.
know.
Because we did have a kick return touchdown last week. So
Oh,
again,
Jesus.
it might be 10. No, I mean we didn't score an offensive touchdown against Duke. Like 4 field goal or 3 field goals in the kick return touchdown, and then we scored 1 offensive touchdown against Memphis. We scored 2 against SMU. We had it's not been good. 2 against Clemson. Um, outside of. I mean, outside of that first drive of the game against Georgia Tech, where you went down and scored, we haven't gotten to 20 points again yet. And so, I think that, yeah, like the path to a Florida State win is like almost zero. But yeah, what does Florida State have to do to win this game? I mean, they've got to score 20 and just hope that Cam has the worst game of his life. And you can turn him over some. Florida State will play bend don't break. Like they'll do their very best to like take the air out of the game, and I think that's something that will probably not help, but like they'll go the Florida route of this. Bend don't break, try to be down by 7 or 10 at halftime, and then hope the floodgates don't open. Hope that your defense can kind of keep coming up.
So I think Mario's comfortable playing that game because that's what Mario wants to do. He wants to run the ball. So I think he's comfortable playing that game. Like if that's what you want to do, I think he's comfortable
Yeah.
just
Well,
running the ball.
and I think it makes sense for Florida State because I mean, Mike's not an idiot. Like he knows, like if you could lose this game, 34-17, I mean, that's a win for Florida State. I mean, I hate to say that in a rivalry game, but like not getting your doors blown off like Florida did, not getting, to me, with an offense that's so inept, if Florida State like had an offense that could score 28 a game, like I think you'd say, no, we're going to go try and win this thing.
No, 'cause I
But
think Florida State's got a good defense, right? They're still pretty good on defense.
they are, yeah. And I think, yeah, I mean, you look at the defenses that Miami has played. I think they're better than Virginia Tech. I think they're better than I think they're better than Cal's. I think they're better than Louisville's.
They're
Yeah,
not better. They're not better up front than Virginia Tech, right? You don't think like pass
Farmer
rushing and stuff.
Farmer and Peyton have been playing pretty well. And even really, it is Duke, so it's hard to know. But Jackson hadn't been very good all year, but he looked pretty good against Duke. And it's hard again. That is Duke, so not trying to give him too many flowers for
So
that.
I think Bain has a Rousseau type game, like 4 sacks, 5 sacks. This will be his third game back. He's got his footing back a little bit. He flashed last week. Florida State, he was recruited heavily by Florida State. I think this is the game where he reminds people. I mean, he had 10 pressures last week. I think this is the game where he reminds people.
Well, I said this yesterday on Twitter. Darius Washington, their best tackle from last year, I've been told is not going to play in the game. That hasn't been reported anywhere else yet, but I'm pretty confident in who told me. So that'll be a lot of trouble. They'll have to start Rob Scott or maybe a redshirt freshman and Lucas Simmons or somebody like that to do that, and that's going to be trouble. Whether it's Bain, whether that's on Bain's side or not, that's not going to
That's
be.
Simeon Barrow, the kid from
Yeah,
Michigan State. He's been our best defensive player this year by far.
yeah, and so
Most consistent.
Florida State's in a lot of trouble there just because I have no confidence. Like Rob Scott is a fifth year guy and probably shouldn't even be on scholarship at this point and came in last week and was just terrible against Duke. At the end of the game, his first play of the game, he gave up a sack on the last drive of the game. Just like the worst timing ever. Like, hey man, welcome in. You're fresh, you're good, sack. So yeah, I mean, but if I'm Norvell, I do try my very best to compensate for that. And I think that you can only do so much, but like you got to roll Brock out a ton. You got to use his legs a ton. Maybe you just kind of run option a ton to try and avoid that. I will say, like, I think we had like 6 sacks given up last week. Manny brought a ton of pressure. Like 5 of them were Luke and 1 was Brock. So Brock does a little better job. He is pretty mobile. He's quick. I think he's quicker than Cam. He's not smarter than Cam. He's not as good of a runner, but he is quicker. And so I think that his mobility may save him a little bit there, but yeah, I don't have a lot of hope for the offensive line. And that's what'll happen. To me, this is what's going to happen. And I could be wrong, but Florida State will play well enough defensively. Both teams will try and take the air out of the ball a little bit. And, because you said Mario likes to run too. Like Florida State will play bend, don't break, like make them use some time. And they'll go to the half down like 17-3, like still in it ish or 17-6 or something like that. Like it'll be close enough to where it's not a laugher yet. And then the second half, like the defense will just get worn out. Miami will break a couple of big ones. Cam will do something stupid, that just like sits back and throws a bomb. And that's where it'll probably get a little bit more out of hand. And I think Miami covers the spread. So, but I could see the first half being competitive-ish, never really in doubt, but like you kept it close. Your defense played hard for a half. They played really hard against Clemson. They got up for that game. And so I expect the effort to be there. I don't think, the team is very good.
Let me ask you this from an outside perspective because how good as just you watch the Miami games obviously and you have for a while. How good does an outsider think Xavier Restrepo is as a college wide receiver?
Yeah, like he's everything you want. Just his body control, I think his hands are obviously great too. And he's a great route runner. Like just everything you would want, right? Like I started to give him praise about one thing and then like 4 things later, I'm like, oh, well, he actually does other things really well too. Yeah, his hands are great. Obviously he's a great route runner, just always finds himself open. And his body control really is what's most impressive. I mean, obviously people are going to remember the catches where he's falling on the ground and still figuring out a way to come up with it, which again, just ridiculous. But yeah, I mean, he is so impressive. I think last year in that Florida State game, like he had like, maybe it was last year or the year before, like he had
no
nothing.
catches.
Yeah, which Florida State's defense was really good. You got 2 guys playing, Renardo Green and Jerry Jones that are playing on Sunday right now and making plays. Like,
What I think we threw for 160
yeah,
yards
backup
total, and one of
quarterback.
them was on a chunk play.
But even looking back at that, like I have no idea how they didn't get him the ball like at least once. Seeing what he's doing now, it is so impressive. And I do think that bringing in some other really big time talent and then you've got, other guys that came back, Georgia and stuff. I do think that has helped just take that pressure off him because for a while it was really just him, a couple of years ago.
So he's going to go down as the most catches and most yards for a team that's had Andre Johnson, Michael Irvin,
That's
Santana Moss,
insane.
Reggie Wayne. And I know he's played longer than those guys, but so he was a 3-star recruit. I remember we did the thing up in Tampa, like the first year when we got him. That was the 18 class.
Yeah.
And he was a 3-star recruit. And he was like one of those late guys who's like from, and Florida got the Henderson kid who was a 5-star and Restrepo's. I mean, I would like to go back and look, but I think he's the best receiver from that class. He's just the perfect college receiver. I don't know how good he'll be, but he could get a Ricky Persall type of
Yeah.
draft grade. Like he's just a perfect receiver, bro. He's always there. He gives up his body. He makes every catch. When he drops it, you're shocked.
Yeah. I'm going to make a comparison, and I hope Florida State fans don't hate me for this, but it reminds me of Rashad Green. I don't know if he's quite as quick as Rashad was. I think Rashad's a little faster, and Rashad was a 4-star. So, like, he was hyped coming out. But just a guy that's not incredibly, like,
Like your
tall or
body. It
athletic.
doesn't look getting off the bus, he doesn't
Yeah.
look like he's about to give you 200.
Not at all. But Rashad, I mean, at a school that had, Snoop Minnis and Lavernius
Yeah.
Coles and Peter
Right.
Warwick and all those guys, like, who's the guy? Anquan. Rashad leads in yardage, like all the stats. Again, he played for the most years, so it kind of makes sense. But
Well, and he had the biggest play from the championship,
yeah,
right? Like the
for a
Rashad Green up
long.
the sideline thing.
Yeah, and he also he caught a game winner against Virginia Tech. He caught a game winner against in a bowl game against Notre Dame. He caught a game winner. That championship one wasn't a game winner, but essentially, and then he had one more too that I'm not remembering who it was against. But yeah, he was incredibly clutch and just kind of always there. And yeah, I mean, that comparison actually kind of stands out to me. And Rashad didn't have a super long NFL career or anything like that, but shoot, you go to the league and you get paid at least once. Like it's better than I'm doing. So, do you have a score prediction in this one? 1,000,000,000.
No, like I don't know, 52-10.
10. Ooh. Yeah, I think it's. Yeah, I think it's.
52-17, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you could score a little bit more. To me, it's when Mario wants to pull off the dogs.
I think they're getting 50 though. I think they're gonna go for 50.
I think it's when I think he remembers getting,
Blasted at home.
yeah,
like,
dog walked at home. I think he's not dumb. First of all, he knows he said that, and second of all, like he's seen it now that it's come back around. Even if he forgot he said it, and he's going to be like, I mean, not even that he needed to see that quote to be motivated. Like he knows what this rivalry is.
he's a Miami guy, right? So
Yeah,
he
he gets
played
it.
for him. He's hated Florida State his whole life. He didn't just start hating Florida State 3 years
Right,
ago when he got
3
the
years
Miami
ago.
job.
Right.
He's hated him
So
his whole entire life.
yeah, and he had to wear that as a first year coach when things weren't going well. He is not going to, in my opinion, play nice, but we'll see. Yeah, to me, and that's why to me it's if Florida State can take the air out of the ball a little bit, lose this thing by 17. I mean, if they lost by 2 scores, like they lost to Clemson by 16, right? And
And that was like a kind of a win for them.
for sure, yeah. If you
It's
lost,
not giving up Bobby Bowden's ACC thing on Bobby Bowden Field.
yeah.
That had to have been the worst part.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like the casual fan doesn't even. It's just like, all right, see you next week. We'll be drunk in the parking lot. But yeah, I mean, to me, that's why if Florida State can kind of keep it somewhat close, they can kind of sell like, well, we fought hard. Actually, they won't sell anything. This is trash. But anyway, all right, man. Well, I appreciate it.
So, do you have hope for the future? They can't recruit, right?
Oh,
So, what's your hope? Like, what's your hope? What do you hope they do in 6 weeks?
yeah. I mean, I think you just have to retool the staff, and they also have to just refocus their mindset on how to build a roster. I think they don't put the emphasis on recruiting that they should. And I think Florida State fans have kind of always known that, but they were getting away with it. And due to the portal, due to a bunch of guys coming back, what you thought was a good culture, all those things. I think Florida State fans knew that though. Like they were, I mean, after winning 10 games in 2022, you're like, why do we have like a 15th ranked class? And then winning, 13 games the next year, you're like, why are we not in the top 10? Like this is an issue. And Florida State fans have had problems with several of the coaches on staff, not thinking they were kind of up to snuff or up to quality, and they've complained about that. And maybe it's hard to fire coaches after you go 13-0. I mean, I know Saban or Kirby would do it, but those guys are killers. And so, I'll tell you when it's even harder to fire coaches though, or find better coaches is maybe a better way to say it, is after you win 2 games. So you should have done the hard thing at 13-0, not the hard thing at 2-10. But yeah, I mean, Norvell's contract's insane, so there's no way they're firing.
Yeah, it's not going to be Norvell, but it could be
he should
the
retool
people around him.
Yeah, he should go get a new offensive coordinator. He should probably, I mean, he certainly needs to upgrade a couple of guys that were down there in Dugans and Shannon, and probably more than just those 3. And so if he can do that, then it's the question of, well, you got to give it time to try and work. You got to build up the recruiting classes again. But at the same time, like it is the ACC, and if you just get like semi-competent level play, I mean, Florida State really like right now should be like 4-3. Like there's no excuse for losing to Duke, Memphis, or even Boston College. And so like if we had won those 3 games and it was 4-3, like that would be a disappointment, but it wouldn't be like the room is burning down disappointment, right? Like, and so just competent level play, a little bit better QB play, a little bit better O-line play, it is the ACC. Like worst case, I mean, I realize I'm saying that at 1-6 right now, but worst case next year, they should be a 6-6, 7-5 team because it's the ACC. And so
Right.
to me, like it's not the SEC where you got to go and every week is murder's row. But if you can just get competent level play, they'll be back to, I don't know if they'll be competing with the Clemsons and the Miamis and they got to open up with Alabama, which is tough, obviously. But I think they could very easily get back to like, oh, okay, we're winning 6 to 8 games a year, and then you try and transition that back into like, okay, well, we need to get to the 9 or 10 level. There should be no excuse why Florida State's not the third best team in the ACC in like 2 years, right? You might say Clemson and Miami are still 1-2, but in 2 years, Florida State should be the third best team in the league, and there still might be a pretty good gap, but you can win a lot of games being the third best team. So I don't know. That's pretty optimistic when you're 1-10, I guess, but I still think it tracks. Like
No, it does. It absolutely does.
it ain't that hard to beat, Pitt. I mean, I guess Pitt's good this year, but like in general, like go win the game. Duke and stuff like that. So we'll see. Kev, I appreciate you, man, for hanging out a little bit. Good luck this weekend. I'm sure you're going, so have fun, enjoy it,
We'll be there.
and try to. If you see Mario, tell him to take it a little bit easy in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, right. All right, man.
All right, buddy. Talk to
See
you
you
later.
later.